Welcome to the Inside Silverstone podcast, a business-focused podcast covering all things tech, engineering and innovation. Hosted by me, Chris Broome, a huge tech, motorsport and gaming fan, and also the owner of Longhurst, a firm of lifestyle financial planners and independent financial advisors located in Silverstone, Northamptonshire. This is a series of unscripted and unpolished conversations with leading business owners, thought leaders and high-tech talent where we discuss their experiences within the Silverstone business and motorsport region. We will also be asking them to share their knowledge, insight and their thoughts on the future just for you. If you're looking to learn more about the Silverstone high growth region and commercially connect with like-minded peers, you've definitely come to the right place. Welcome to Inside Silverstone.
Welcome to the next edition of Inside Silverstone. My name is Pim van Baarsen, and in a special 100 episodes, we're doing things a little differently. Instead of having your usual host, Chris Broome, I will briefly hold the reins today, as Chris is the 100th guest on his own podcast. I'm delighted to welcome to the show several previous podcast guests who, alongside myself, will be turning the tables on Chris and asking him the questions. I've also have some questions from a number of people who couldn't attend today. So let's get going with the interview. Now, Chris, you wanted me to start, so my question is, you're always big on positivity and optimism, but how do you maintain yours? Because we can't all be happy all the time, can we?
Very good question. And that's because in the first series of meetings that you and I had, both for the podcast and also for financial planning, I was talking about optimism, right?
Yep.
Because you were going through sort of a life event at the time, and I was trying to prop you up and make sure that you focused on being optimistic. And also you're Dutch, and so Dutch people are generally quite pessimist, right? It's really simple. So I'm like everyone else. I suffer from highs and lows. COVID 2020 clearly has been a challenge for all of us. Can't believe there'd be anybody that hasn't suffered some form of anxiety from something where they didn't realize they were suffering from it, through to something that's severe. And I've in my past had some quite deep dips, from bereavement through to other sort of serious events. And so I think what I reflect on is that certainly now, when I encounter those personal challenging moments, I remember that it's not as bad as it's been before, and it's never going to be as bad as it was once before. And so if I can deal with and cope with and survive things that have happened many years ago, I can certainly cope with things that I'm faced with today. And I think certainly as you get a bit older and you get a few more grey hairs on your chin like I am, you grow a bit wiser, and you approach things with a little bit more confidence and sort of calmness. But I still suffer, and so I'm being interviewed by everybody today. This is the 100th episode. It's a landmark moment, and so last night at 11 o'clock through to probably 1 o'clock this morning, I'm in bed worrying a little bit. I'm thinking about the questions I'm going to be asked. I'm suffering from minor anxiety. I've had a really shit night's sleep, because it's all very normal, right? But what I'm going to do today is, once I finish this interview, I've got another meeting at midday, and then I'm going to take the dog for a massive walk. And when he's knackered, I'll come back, and then I'm going to go to the driving range for an hour and stop thinking about work and podcasts and COVID and life, and try and focus on stuff that I'm enjoying, that I enjoy doing. And so that's how I sort of get over those sort of bumps and bruises. But as I said, remembering that, personally, I've got over moments in my past. I can certainly cope with stuff today. And so, remaining optimistic, I think we've got to, right? It's we're very lucky to be alive. Clearly, and that's not a cheesy comment, we very much are. There are people that are much worse off than us. First world problems most of the time for some of us. You've got to put things into perspective. So that's how I sort of approach it, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. And I'm sure this podcast is not going to be as bad as you believe it might be. I'm sure. Let's move on to the next question then. So Fiona Pauly from Fiona the Coach, would you like to ask your question?
Thanks, Pim. Morning, everyone. I wanted to know, considering you've done 99 previous interviews and also the year that everyone's been having, are there any standout moments where people have demonstrated their kind of either motorsport grit or that real high performance engineering, we get bounce back resilience that you've been inspired by this year? And no pressure on all of us watching you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. First of all,
but yeah, just anyone who's you kind of was really inspired by in terms of your interviews that have gone on this year.
So I think I'm going to give a bit of a sort of group answer. So one thing that I've loved this year, and the one thing that I've personally embraced, is the community. And so both the sort of technical community that we're all part of, and clearly the people that have been on the podcast, but also the one my neighbourhood. And so certainly from the people we've had on the podcast, those that have been certainly involved with the COVID effort, from producing PPE, who have been partnering up, so Christiana and Julie, for example, and their businesses have been, and others have been part of the manufacturing, the production, the rollout of PPE, alongside, Health UK, I think it's Health UK, and Oxford University, for example. It can only be inspiring, right? That the community that we're part of is helping to save lives. Like, you've taken motorsport technology, deep learning, decades of understanding, and used that to support the health community and the health sector. So first and foremost, that clearly has to be something that we've got to be proud of and be incredibly impressed by. And I'm sure that those that are involved in it would be humbled in me saying that and other people saying that. But frankly, they are part of the recovery effort for us as a country. So that's phenomenal. But I think overall, I don't know how many episodes I've done this year. I think I've done 50 interviews or something stupid, 40 interviews, and the general feeling and energy and sentiment from everybody is one of just pulling through, right? Everyone's got their own personal challenges. So from Pim's first question, everyone's dealing with something, and yet they're still pushing forward. They're still trying to innovate. They're not resting on their laurels. They're fighting for their business's survival. They're fighting for their employed survival if they're employed. People are launching new strands to their businesses, brand new businesses, full stop. So Chris Murdoch, who's here, has just in the last week launched a new digital platform. This is, we're part of a community that's not going to stop. Right, and so yes, we may suffer problems and challenges and bereavement and other issues, but candidly, we're going to sort of pull our socks up, typical British spirit as such, or global spirit, I should say, and push ahead. So yeah, incredibly proud to be part of that community.
Super, thank you.
Well, thanks, Fiona.
Thanks, Chris. Moving on to John Lashley from the Brooklyn Brownie Company. John, over to you.
Hi, John.
Hey, Chris, what's shaking, brother?
Very good, mate. Just so you know, like my partner at home, her company now and her colleagues are buying your brownies. We've got lots of other people buying your brownies. So we're literally shouting from the rooftops because they're that bloody good.
Oh, brother, thank you so much, man, for your support. It's been cool. Very good, man. And that's one of the parts of my questions. With the amount of people that you've interviewed over this year, which is a good amount. You had 100 podcasts. What solutions and tactics have you gleaned and kind of been impressed with to help local businesses compete and set themselves apart from the online giants? Because Bezos just keeps balling. That guy has like doubled his money. So how can the little independent, I'm not just saying coffee shop, because we're in Northampton at the end of the day. We're not London. In London, I get a little robot to deliver me coffee to the studio. But in Northampton, it's a little bit harder. So like, what tactics have you seen people use?
So I think it's a combination behind sort of content marketing and promoting your story. So I think people buy people, right? So the reason that I found you, John, was because I saw something that you were nominated for an entrepreneurial award. And I looked at your brand and I thought, my God, that's a brilliant brand. Looked into it, saw your video, saw the connection and the story with your son, saw the product, and I was like, A, I'm buying that. Yeah, and B, I want to get this guy on the podcast, even though it's not necessarily our technical community. It's still part of our bigger, broader Northamptonshire business community, right? You're part of the family. We're all part of the same family. So I think having really good content is key. And so we've had a few people on the podcast who are able to help promote and put together content for businesses and for us. And so I can certainly point people in the right direction of those people. Making sure you're using the right technology. So, I mentioned Chris earlier. So Chris has literally just launched a digital platform and we can provide links in the show notes, which can help your business attract the best talent by ensuring that you're promoting your brand and your own company narrative and the values and why it's so cool to work for you. So it's just down to engagement. Through to, in my mindset, just hustling. You've got to work hard. You know, you're competing against, as you said, you know, different giants of their industry. It's the same with my business, Longhurst. We're a small company, but we've got mighty plans. And so, you know, I'm personally hustling, as I know you are, John, to ensure that people know who we are, that they know what we do, they know what we don't do. And you know, with the podcast, for example, it's about supporting other people. So there's no better way to promote your own brand by promoting other people and supporting other people on their journey. And so, you know, that's the approach that I've taken. And I can certainly see within even this group here, this panel here, but also the wider podcast list, just a bunch of individuals and companies that are supporting others, are you know, mutually benefiting from that, and are sort of sticking together. And you know, the Silverstone Technology Cluster, for example, with PIM, is a great example of that. You know, there's a community there which, you know, as an individual, yeah, you know, potentially isn't the biggest, but as a group, as a collective of businesses with different specialities, means that we can compete with some of the monsters out there, perhaps.
Brilliant, awesome, thanks, Chris.
Cheers, John.
Excellent. So next is Julie Stewart from the TD Group. Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Julie, unmute yourself, please.
Unmute yourself, Julie.
John. Just that I'm here now. Sorry. Hi. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're well. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
Are you scared?
No, Julie. Because I love you.
I've got so many questions.
You'll be gentle with me, Julie.
I thought so many questions this morning, and I just want to know really what your best achievement is, I guess. And I mean, there's two mixed into ones. And have you got a proud moment? And also, what is your 5-year plan? So a little bit mixed in together. So I want to know what your best achievement has been and what you want to achieve in the future, really, in a nutshell.
So I never really deemed myself to be particularly academic. I was the kid at school who had all the potential, should have got A's, but got B's and C's because I didn't study hard enough, and I just didn't have enough belief in myself. And that kind of followed through to A levels. I went to university for a year and came out. I chose the wrong degree, so I was miserable and so left. And I always shied away from sitting within my profession sort of advanced qualifications, which would then make me chartered or a fellowship or otherwise, and I sort of always shied away from that. And my mum, bless my mum, basically during my late 20s was like, Chris, you've got to finish these, you've got to do these exams. You really have to do these exams because you can pass them and then it's going to move you on to the next tier from an employee, but then certainly as a business owner. And I sort of started sitting those exams, and then mum got terminally ill, and then mum passed away, but then she made me promise that I'd bloody finish these exams. And so during my mid-30s, so whilst everyone else is raising families and doing all this other stuff, I'm sitting there revising a couple of hours a day and then revising over a weekend, solid for 2 years, to sit another 10 exams to then get my chartered fellowship. So now I sit in the top tier of sort of financial planners in the country from an academic perspective. And I remember when I read the email saying that I passed it, and you know, clearly had a tear, remembered and reminisced about mum, and I sat and I thought, yeah, I've done it. You know, I've broken through that fear, that bias in my brain that I couldn't do it, and I did it. And now I encourage others to do it. For a period of time, I was a chartered champion within my profession, so I was showing other financial planners and advisors how to sit the exams, the study techniques, and how to sort of persevere during some of those darker days when you're pessimistic and not optimistic to pass them. So I think that's definitely one of the most proudest moments that I've had, just because of, as I've explained, the sort of connotations to mum. And then the plans for the next 5 years are really simple. Do a few more podcasts, maybe, and grow the business. We've just brought on board our first additional financial planner, a guy called Steve, who's going to become an equity partner. That's going to see us move up to the next level from a company perspective. Want to keep doing good, want to keep supporting the community, want to keep going into the schools to encourage them to participate in financial planning as a career, like I know that you do with recruitment and what you do. And to be a sort of remain an important member of this community, so that I can keep enjoying it, because that's ultimately what this is about, right? It's all well and good having business plans, and yes, I want to achieve this turnover and this profitability and this number of clients and X, Y, Z. But in reality, I also just want to make sure I enjoy the journey. And I think this comes back to Pim's first question, which was, I know my previous life and some of the challenges I had there. What's going on right now? I'm in utopia. This is, I'm loving life right now. I'm loving the business. I'm loving the community. And if I could just keep this going, it's just going to organically grow. And in 5 years, Julie, we'll sit down over a gin and tonic and we'll see where we both are. And hopefully, we're in the same office block still, and our respective businesses are growing alongside each other.
Share our journeys, won't we?
Yeah, I hope so. That's part of what this is about, right?
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
That's all right, Julie.
Excellent. Next, we'll move on to Damien Sonell from NN1 Personnel. Damien?
Hello.
Damien!
Hi. Hello, Chris.
Hello, buddy. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm wonderful. Over the moon. Yourself?
Very good. I was looking at a picture of you topless in a lake the other day.
Yes.
So tell us about that quickly.
Yeah, that was my first. I did my first winter swim last Saturday.
Nutter.
Yeah, the water degree was 5 degrees. I managed to stay at 5 minutes, and I recommend to everyone. I'm doing it another one on Saturday, so I think it's gonna stay with me now. It's amazing. You have to push yourself.
For a moment, I was very worried where this podcast was going, but
yeah, because there was few guys actually there, so yeah, you could possibly have a different thoughts, No, that was just winter swim. So yeah, if anyone, okay, what I can say, if anyone thought about it or heard about it, go and do it, or let me know, and you can do it with us, because it's an amazing feeling, especially when you go out. You're just pushing your comfort zone. You think you can do it, and then after you just feel amazing.
Pim, I think you and I should go and do that, mate.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I saw you out. I'll make sure I've got some nice whiskey after to warm us up.
That makes it a lot more tempting now.
So anyway, thanks very much for having me on. And yeah, I've got two questions. One is a really quick one, and one is actually yours questions. So the first one is, what's your favorite crisps?
Easy, steak McCoy's.
Oh yeah, I had them actually on Sunday night. Very nice.
Love a steak McCoy.
And then obviously now my question is, so what's been the lowest of the lowest of least of the lowest your moments in your entrepreneurial journey, and what kept you going? What make you just, don't give up and just say, shit that, fuck that. I'm getting a well-paid job and I can't be bothered. So
really easy. So that's 2014. So beginning of 2014, my mother passed away. We all suffered from bereavement, and so I'm no different than anybody else. But that really impacted our family, but really, really impacted me for a number of reasons. And and I was running a company at the time, and I had sort of merged it with some other people, within that same sort of time frame. And I basically made a mistake. I hadn't done or hadn't spent enough time really thinking through that exercise. And by the end of the year, I realised that sort of pragmatically, I was on the wrong journey at the wrong time, and I had just surrounded myself with the wrong tribe of people from a family perspective. And that's not a negative comment about them; it's a mutual statement. As in, I was surrounded by the wrong people for me. But within a company that I owned and a business that was growing and was about to become very profitable. And I realised that as a proud man, as somebody that was trying to be entrepreneurial, that ultimately I'd made a mistake and I was going to have to reset, which in itself is just a huge transition to go from a sort of one family bereavement to what was for me a corporate bereavement in my mindset within the same sort of 9 to 10 months was incredibly challenging. I sunk emotionally to the lowest of lows. And so again, coming back to the Pim's first question, which was a very good anchoring question. I was in a period of my life where it could have gone one of two ways, and I basically took myself down to the south coast. I remember it vividly at the Christmas, so it was literally 6 years ago-ish, nearly to the day. Took myself down to the south coast, sat on a bench that I used to take mum to, got a piece of paper out, and I just drew as I do, I scribble and draw and doodle, and I just drew out what could be, you know, my next business, my next life. And then I had to make a decision about whether I wanted it enough, and what was I prepared to do to go and get it. And that decision was to exit an organisation. The fog of war when you leave a business isn't fun, or can't be fun. And then I went and became an employee for the first time in probably a decade, which in itself was also an incredibly difficult transition, to go from being a boss of sorts and self-employed to having to take orders from other people. Was probably a very good exercise for me from a humbling perspective, but it provided me with an opportunity to finish off my academia, develop my financial planning sort of spiritual course. So what type of financial planner do I want to be? What type of business do I want to run? How do I want to charge? Where do I want to be based? What community do I want to be part of? And I got busy building it. And then in 2018, I launched it. And you know, we are now in December 2020 recording a 100th episode for a podcast, yeah, which is supporting a financial planning practice which is growing and growing. And so I think the lesson there was that ultimately you can, as you know, Damien, achieve anything that you want as long as you set your mind to it. And it's going to be tough, and there's going to be bumps and bruises, and there's probably going to be some tears. But if you stick with it and you believe in it, and you then surround yourself with the right family, the right tribe of people who certainly during COVID period, for example, definitely helped prop me up, then you can sincerely achieve anything, right? And you know, your swimming is a great example of that. Your running is a great example of that, right? These are things that you didn't personally believe that you could overcome, and you're nailing them and posting them on Facebook and social media.
Yeah, that's true. No, fair play to you, to be honest, Chris, because yeah, it's amazing that sometimes people. I was listening to John Maxwell today, and sometimes they think people say, you know, you're an overnight success when you run a business, but actually when you dig in, and obviously the people who don't see the struggle, and like I said, you're truly an example, because like I said, you were probably that close from just giving every example. You know, obviously you face the consequences, the shit reality, but you stuck on with your journey and on your journey with your vision. So that's amazing. Fair play. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah, excellent question. Well done. Christiana Paci from Innovation Consulting.
Great. My name is spelled right, so that's really good.
Christiana. Hello.
How are you doing?
Very good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you for inviting me. Well, actually, you are 1/3 of the way down on the question, so you're almost there, Chris. Don't worry. So I was going to ask the first question that Damien did as well, but also, as you already answered to that, you as a British ask me which kind of crisp I like, and I give you an answer on my podcast. Now I'm as an Italian, I'm asking you what kind of pizza topping you like the most.
Great question. Great question. So if it's a Domino's, then it's a meteor pizza. So I'm loving
it's Italian. Domino is not Italian.
Well, I know, but okay. Well, I'm going to go meat. So meat feast. Yeah. So anything that's literally covered in meat, bit of barbecue sauce, perhaps. Yeah, I guess that's quite a predictable answer, right? But yeah, I'm a meat feast man. What about yourself?
Oh, I'm very much the opposite, vegetarians kind of. But my favorite one that is very Italian and you can't find it in England is smoked salmon and sweet corn.
Smoked salmon and sweet corn. I just can't get my head around that.
I know. I'll have to re-educate you on pizza taste and pizza topping. I have to say, Italian one.
I need to tell Louise that. Louise will probably love that. That's just, yeah, anything with fish on, I just don't get on the pizza. But who am I? So yeah, meat feast for me.
I'll take note for the next time then.
I think just to add in, I think I can guess what Christiana's answer to this question will be, but be interesting to hear what Chris is. Where do you stand on pineapple or bananas on pizza? Christiana, you're going to be a no, right? Italians are all screaming at the moment. Where do you stand?
Did you say banana?
Yeah, pineapple or bananas on pizza.
Well, I have to say, now you can have also Nutella and bananas on pizzas.
Yeah.
Nutella? What? Who are these crazy people? Pineapple I kind of get, but banana and Nutella. Anyway, well, yeah. Yeah. Maybe after a bottle.
I don't think so.
We'll have to write a book, The Art of Pizza, and what is really the Italian pizza topping, I think.
The Art of Pizza by the STC Group.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Nutella and banana. I could agree that. On toast.
Is,
not
there, is,
pizza.
is anyone on the podcast pro pineapple on pizza?
I'm not against it.
So what's that? 3 out of, what are we, 50 of 4?
No, don't.
So a third.
Pineapple,
No.
We'll have our own pineapple splinter group then.
Yeah, splinter group. Yeah.
Although I'm also very much in the let's have all the meats that exists on the pizza group.
The New Yorker's good. Yeah.
Right, let's move on. Louise Goodman from Goodman Media. Can you get us back on track? And
No pressure.
No, chaos.
A world famous journalist asking me a question. No pressure.
Well, I think I've loved listening to the questions that everybody's asked, and also I think some great stories that have come across in your answers as well. And obviously, as a journalist, I quite like looking at the processes of interviews and how they all come together. Now that you've done 99 podcasts, big congrats on that one. I just wondered, have you got any tips for me in terms of my interview skills?
Well, God, I think, personally, I just try to be myself, and so I try to make people feel naturally relaxed. So I think you've got to, certainly if someone's got their 20 minutes to be interviewed on a podcast, you've got to try and make them feel comfortable and relaxed, and turn up and make sure you turn up, right? So I was asked this question by my peer group a couple of weeks ago, and there are times when I go into an interview where I'm really busy, my mind's elsewhere, I might even be grumpy, dare I say, because of what's going on, and I've got to make sure that I turn the charm on, I'm positive, I'm optimistic, and I make sure that the person I'm interviewing gets the best out of that 20 minutes or whatever that those questions are, because clearly it's then going to be used as promotion for their organisation. So I certainly think turning up and being on point, and just trying to be as relaxed as possible, because I would sense that my energy will transmit, and so if I'm anxious and stressed and rushing or don't seem genuinely interested, that they're gonna pick that up, right? And that may then come across in how they respond to the questions that I ask. So I don't know, turn up, be on point, be relaxed, be authentic, and then wing it, right? Because that's basically what I've been doing for 99 and now 100 episodes. What would you say? Because I'm going to turn this back on you, Louise. So what would you say are the top 3 tips?
I've written all of those down. This is not about us answering questions, Chris. You said
come on. Anyway.
No, I think you're absolutely right there in everything that you said. And I think you've certainly as an interviewee, Christiana and I did a little group of girls together. We were all very relaxed, weren't we, Christiana? I thought you did a very, very good job. I had to sort of shut myself up a couple of times because I kept asking the follow-up questions, didn't I? But no, I'm sure everybody who's here listening in on this chat has been on the receiving end of your microphone. And I don't think any of us would have come back if it had been an unpleasant experience. So you're doing a fab job.
Well, first of all, thank you. That's humbling and very lovely to hear. But what you didn't say was, obviously, when we started that interview at the BRDC, I forgot to turn the bloody microphone on, and so for the first 5 minutes we recorded, there was no recording, and then I sat there panicking, thinking, shit, I've got to explain to these ladies and the camera crew that the freaking microphones aren't on, and we've got to start it again. So that was just devastatingly embarrassing. But yeah, everyone was a good sport about it.
But Chris, I have to say,
I once did a 20-minute interview with Ron Dennis, and then we discovered once we got it back to the TV compound that none of the audio had stuck. So
it can happen to the best.
Oh yeah.
Chris, it's not just the microphone. Sometimes you get the days wrong as well for your interview.
Oh, okay. Yes, I did. Yes, that's true. Yeah, Christiana and her husband came for a planning meeting, and I had the microphones and the lights on and everything set up because I thought it was going to be a podcast interview. And then her husband was sat next to her, and I was like, shit, we're not doing a podcast. Get into the financial planning mindset. So thank you for that. Yeah, that's true. That's a true story.
Amazing. Right, let's move on. Marcus Strovimore from Silverstone Composites.
Marcus.
Hi, Chris.
Hello, Marcus.
Doing well, mate. You're doing well. It's
Thank
all
you,
good.
mate.
It's all good. So I got a bit of a funny question and a bit of a serious question. So first one is what was the first car you bought? As me being a bit of a car fanatic and own sort of thing. What was your first car?
It was a green Fiesta 1.4, which
Nice.
I just barely fitted in. And I remember my head used to touch the ceiling. And when I eventually sold it, I cleaned this car immaculately, right? You sell it and you're going to hand it over, buffered it, cleaned all the inside. But one thing I'd forgotten to do was look up, and the ceiling was covered in my bloody hair. where the gel, this is in my early 20s, right? Where the gel had clearly stuck hair to the top of this.
Nice.
And I'm like, too late, got to hand it over. So that's a true story.
Good. So then my second question, just quickly, is so as you know, it's been a tough year for most of us in the community this year. And for next year, what are your plans for 2021, and what sort of advice could you give us for financial planning for next year? Because it's going to be a bit of a shock, I think, I can imagine, to everybody going into next year and seeing what the future holds, and give us that positivity as businesses, sort of, and reflect that onto us, please.
So I think, as I explained to Julie, so next year for me is all about just continuing to enjoy building Longhurst, to keep building on the sort of foundation bricks that we've already laid around the business, which is attracting in new clients and new professional connections and new friends, and also just to keep being part of the community. So I'm very much looking forward to when we can start socialising properly together and start hugging each other and going out for beers without having to worry about it. There's going to be an STC conference next year, which will be great. There'll be an Inside Silverstone Christmas tipple where I get you all drunk over Christmas next year, as we've done previously. So all of these very normal sort of community-based things I'm looking forward to doing the most. From a sort of financial planning perspective next year for people, I think certainly what's been evidenced this year is that a lot of people haven't had an emergency buffer in place, whether that be a personal emergency buffer or a corporate emergency buffer, such that when the proverbial hit the fan in March and April, there was clearly a lot of people who were suffering financially. Businesses were under pressure, lots of furloughing, etc., but also their own sort of their own household, from having to put mortgage holidays in place through to other emergency measures. And so I think one thing that's going to come out of this, hopefully, certainly for a few, if not a lot, is the understanding that actually they need to ensure that they've got 3 to 6 months cash sat in a bank somewhere boring, that's not invested, they're not spending it, it's literally just there as a sleep easy fund, knowing that if the proverbial hits the fan in the future, which it will do because these things are cyclical, they do happen on average every 5 or 6 years. The last one was 2008, so that's a bit of a delay, but on average every 5 or 6 years, the data shows. You just need to make sure you've got a nice cash reserve there, so that if it does happen, that you're not panicking, that you've got options, that if you are laid off work for any reason, that you've got some time to find another job without running out of cash. And from a business's perspective, it means that you can keep operating, you can keep your team in place. You will still be worrying naturally, but there'll be a little less worry because you've got a nice cash reserve there to sort of prop you up. So I think that will hopefully be one of the biggest lessons that come out for all of us from this into next year.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers, buddy. And also, Marcus, from your perspective, you just need to make sure you stop playing poker, because Marcus was playing poker with us last night, because there's a little poker group that we've got, and for fun he just plays and he just loses his money. So I think the biggest lesson there is to stop bluffing.
Okay, you do hand it over a bit easy sometimes, Marcus. Right, let's move on. Adrian from S3 Group, over to you.
Adrian.
Thank you. Hello, Chris. How are you? Good morning.
Very good, sir. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Very clever way, cunning way to get some new questions for your next 100 interviews, right? I see through it, right through it. And of course, in asking you an awkward question, it might come back at me, multiplied in the future, but at the risk of that. And you've already revealed a couple of embarrassing moments, but what's been your most embarrassing moment in your core business, in your business career, as against your interviewing career? And what did you learn from it?
Ooh. So I've sort of touched on one where I felt public embarrassment, proper serious embarrassment, which was 2014, where I felt like I said I'd gone on a business journey at the wrong time for the wrong reasons with the wrong people. And that then became a public event because my professional community, my clients, then saw me transition out from owning a company to then becoming an employee, which on the face of it, if they didn't know what sort of sat under the bonnet, as it were, would look particularly odd. And so that was professionally incredibly embarrassing. What I took from that was that ultimately it didn't matter. That was just in my head, probably more than theirs, perhaps. And that actually, as long as I stuck to my guns, I stuck to the plan, that in time I would make good, maybe even on some of my own pride, that actually I was now on the right path at the right time, with the right business, as it were. And so from a sort of serious answer, I would say that. There are others as well. I mean, there's personal silly things that I'm embarrassed about that I've done in the past, but that's maybe for another question. So that's not a corporate answer. So okay. Is that good enough, sir?
That's okay. And then just a quick one, ancillary. What's top of your bucket list, and why?
Well, I'm hopefully doing it in May. So I really wanted. So my partner at home, Louise, over the last year has been asking me questions. Would I rather go to Japan or New York again, or here or there, or here or there? And every time she would throw in Alaska, because I've always watched these Alaskan programs, these nature programs. I'd be like, I just want to go there. And every time she asked me the question, we'd end up with Alaska. And so for my 40th, I turned 40 this year. I know I don't look a lot younger, but I turned 40 this year, and a month ago, and she basically bought me us a 2-week trip to Alaska, including a cruise, and so that I can just chill out, spend some time there, read, and experience the last frontier, as it's known as. So I'm very fortunate that hopefully, subject to vaccinations, COVID, and travel, that I might be achieving one of the very top bucket list items, which is go to Alaska.
Great, fantastic. Thanks very much. For season's greetings to you and to everybody.
You too.
Excellent. Thanks, Adrian. Right, Joy Campbell-Brennan from Wavy Dynamics. Over to you, Joy.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Firstly, Chris, how are your handstands doing?
Oh, mate, I haven't practiced. We had an email exchange, just so everyone knows, where we were discussing whether I could be doing a handstand in front of everybody, because Jay is a gymnast. That's his side hustle. And there's some phenomenal videos on YouTube. So you need to go and check out Wavy Dynamics, and you'll see some of the things he's up to. So yeah, it's threatening to get me to do handstands, maybe against that door, but I'm not going to do that.
I'll spare you. My question, just like as someone who's also started and growing a business recently, what are your top 3 rewards and top 3 challenges?
So what would you describe as a reward?
Just moments where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is fulfilling me.
So the very first one was when I started the business like from zero, and we had a bunch of clients sort of join us over a period of months from a sort of previous world that I was in, but ultimately started with zero. And I launched the business on Silverstone Park as a firm of financial advisors, wealth managers, financial planners as such, in a community that sees, in the greatest of respect, professional advice as a necessary evil in some instances. And so very difficult to launch my type of business the way that we do it to a community that might not necessarily get it or indeed want to get it. But our second brand new client ever as a business was a technical director of a race team based on site, who found us organically, emailed me and said, I like the cut of your jib, as it were. Can myself and my wife have a meeting with you? And then they became one of our first ever clients. And so that told me, certainly based on the journey that I've been on over a number of years, that I had definitely chosen the right time to launch this business in the geographic area that we'd chosen, stating that we had a natural niche in sort of technology, motorsport, and engineering. So for me, that was a massive reward, knowing that we'd done that. Winning website of the year, so we entered the company in for a SME South Northamptonshire award in 2019, at the beginning of 2019. And our colourful website full of rainbows and butterflies and life won website of the year, competing against digital content marketing companies and businesses that create brands for others. We were competing against those guys and their websites, and we won. What was even better was the fact that I built the website pretty much on my own, something that I sort of learned to do because many years ago I couldn't afford to pay someone to do it, so I taught myself how to do it. So that was another reward. And then if I'm honest, this year, it's a year where I could have taken it easy as such and just managed the existing clients that we had, and not really do a lot of pushing. But we've just been swamped with new inquiries, but also new inquiries of the nature that we're looking for as an organisation, which showed me that the foundation bricks that we've been laying have been working, and it's taken time, but they're really working, and so we can, as a team, pat ourselves on the back to say, actually, we're doing the right thing. We're clearly marketing ourselves in the right way, and our reward, to answer your question, is to say that actually, yes, we're a young company, but and as are you, but if you just keep plugging away at it and you stick to your principles, core principles, then with a fair wind, and it takes a bit of luck clearly, but hard work, that it will come good. And so that's definitely the third reward. And what were the other three things?
Top 3 challenges.
Keeping going. As in just got to keep going, right? You're running a business. I think everyone here that runs a business knows that you've got to turn up every day, especially if you're employing people, right? And if you're running, I don't have a family, but if I had a family, my God, how much more difficult would that be? I mean, Chris has got four daughters. Is it 4 daughters, 3 daughters, 4 daughters? Four daughters and a wife. So it's like, my God, you're running an organisation, and a really good organisation. So I think you just got to turn up. That's always a challenge, right? You're going to have down days. You've got to make sure you do that. And you've got to carve out your space. So, question before about Amazon, dominating. You've got to try and carve out your space in your area, right? Whether it be geographic or whatever your niche is. And again, that then comes down to hard work, perseverance, and sticking to your principles. And what's other thing? Make sure you enjoy it. Yeah. Very easy to fall into a career or an employed or business where actually you end up not enjoying it. And that's what happened for me 6 years ago. I was in a place where I wasn't enjoying it, and I made a change. And I was brave enough to make that change. But some people just don't want to face it. And I guess that is a challenge. To make sure that you keep focusing on the enjoyment level of what you're doing. Otherwise, what's the point?
Cool, man. Thank you. Good to hear that.
Thank you, and great to have you on the podcast as well.
Good to be there.
Cheers.
Excellent. Right, Neil Johansson from Charpack, over to you.
Thank you, Ben. Well, firstly, I have a special hat, which I think has got a little, it's a bit inquisitorial, so I think I should put it on.
Very good. Very good.
Actually, my question is quite a serious question, Chris. Within our community, a lot of us come from motorsport. It's a big thing with the STC. That means a lot of us have worked in different countries. A lot of us are multilingual. We're a very internationalist group. Putting aside current politics, we are always going to be looking outside all over the world. What are you doing within financial planning to support that general ethic that we have? What are you doing for people with international interests, even very ordinary people like myself? I've just applied for my French state pension, for example. So we have slightly different needs. How can you actually help with that going forward?
So if we're talking about from a sort of Longhurst financial planning perspective, which is how I've sort of interpreted that question. So we have, if I'm doing my job properly, we're encouraging our clients to focus on what matters most to them and to live the life that they really want to live, wherever that is geographically. And so naturally, some of our clients move. They may move within the UK to the coast or to other areas that they want to live in, but also they move abroad. And so from our perspective, we encourage those conversations, whether it be that they want to work abroad or whether they want to retire abroad or whether they just want to buy a holiday home abroad and spend more time in France, for example. Then we not only encourage those conversations, we show them how and if indeed they can be achieved financially. Where people have assets abroad in other jurisdictions, then we will, certainly from a tax planning perspective or a legal perspective, partner with an overseas tax firm or legal firm that's part of a sort of UK sort of broader entity, like a community, so we can ensure that people are getting the right professional advice overseas, whilst we're overseeing all of their UK-based assets, sort of all underpinned with the financial planning software that we use, which sort of brings it all to life. So focus on what matters most to them, encourage the conversation, ask deep questions that make them pause and think about, actually, do we really want to live this type of life? Show them if they can do it financially. Build the race car, which is an analogy we use, get it off the line, and then act as their pit crew to make sure that, that they get to the checkered flag. If that means we then got to bolt in other professionals, whether that be UK-based or globally based, to provide overseas-based advice on those types of assets, then we do that as well.
I love the idea that you actually equate it to a race car, because that's exactly how I approach things. Apart from my work at Charpak, I managed to sign the compromis de vente, the for sale contract on a French cottage on January 26th. And I heard on the news in the car on the way back to where I was staying that someone had actually caught a virus in a city in China, and it was a curious news story. So I've actually been renovating a cottage in Brittany by video link with Breton artisans all year.
Wonders of technology. But yeah, I mean, you know, what a fantastic thing to have purchased, and you're going to create some phenomenal new memories there, right? And presumably with family and children and children's children. So, you know, what a great thing to have done.
Yeah, no, it's something I'd always wanted to do. I moved back from France to here in about 2006, 2007, I think it was. So it was a dream as I come up towards retirement.
Very good. Yeah, to totally support that, and yeah, love to see photos of that once it's been renovated.
I'll come and see you next year when we can all get out a bit more.
Yeah, great.
Excellent.
Thank
right,
you.
on to the next one. Richard Beard from Digital Northampton.
Richard.
Cheers, Pim. How you going, Chris?
Very good, sir. How's Digital Northampton?
Yeah, very good. I've got a question for you on that in a sec, but I was just going to ask first how you think Liverpool are going to do against Tottenham tonight.
Oh,
I know you're struggling with injuries and fake news.
Yeah. Look, the fact that we're still basically second in the league after this season, I think, is testament to the squad, right? So I think we will win. I think it's going to be a 2-1 or a 3-2. I think we will maintain our home record, which is sort of 2 or 3 seasons long. What do you think it will be?
Yeah, I'm never confident when it comes to Tottenham, but I think you may get Mourinho tonight. But I know your fans don't like Mourinho. Previous form.
Who does like Mourinho?
I do now. I never used to like him.
Well, that's because you're top of the league.
I'm really into him now.
You have to give him a credit. Wherever he's been, he won something. And then there's something interesting about him. I don't know if anyone you knew, he hasn't lost a final.
Really?
Every final he's been in, he won.
Also, another stat that on the 12th game, wherever they're based in the league, on their 12th game is where he always ends up at the end of the season.
It'd be good because we've never won a final.
Yeah, exactly.
Always to point out, I really hate football.
All right, Louise. All right, let's move on. Richard, let's move on.
So Digital Northampton, we're big about advocating the town and the county for digital innovation and promote what's going on. We've got e-scooters coming in. We've got electric charging points to start to do robotic deliveries, those little machines delivering shopping. What digital innovation would you like to see brought into the town, county over the next few years to put us on the map?
Well, I think it's going to take more than a few years, but we've had a number of folk on the podcast, including a mastermind session that's focusing on autonomous vehicles and making our town, certainly our cities, greener for clear and obvious reasons. And so I think the one thing that I'm very much looking forward to, and so it's going to take a while, and it's starting with scooters and then eventually, further restriction zones, and then, once the technology in the cars are able to, very much looking forward to seeing how that develops. I'm thinking that I may be a lot older and a lot greyer where it becomes a bit more of the norm. And I think certainly the headway that the car manufacturers are making regarding obviously stopping the production of combustion engine vehicles, for example, by a certain date is clearly a good sign. but yeah, I think things that you just mentioned are phenomenal. But yeah, autonomous vehicles, cleaner transport. I'm looking at electric cars over the next year for a number of reasons, including the tax benefits from a corporate perspective. Eventually we're all going to have electric cars, and then that will then naturally transition into autonomy. And what's not cool about that, right? If you're loving your Blade Runners and Minority Reports and these types of films, that at some point we may not be here. That's going to happen, right? And how awesome is that?
I would have put Flying DeLorean, something like that would have been top of my list.
Yeah, okay, you're going to nail it with the DeLorean. Yeah, imagine that.
Brilliant. Cheers for that.
Yeah, great. I'm delighted that we've sort of collaborated. Digital Northampton's a phenomenal entity. Your podcast, it's a great idea, that podcast, by the way, but it's interviewing all the locals. It's a great idea, and I'm delighted that we've been part of it as well.
Yeah, well, we nicked it off you. Cheers.
I know you did.
Excellent. I actually think this is a good point to bring in one of the questions of the people who couldn't be here today, because it kind of marries in. So Sally Powolowski wants to know, where does your passion from technology come from?
That's really easy. So I'm very fortunate that my father was always into computers. And so I remember when I was a wee lad playing on the first ever Atari, which was the Pong game, the orange controller, turning the knob. So I remember playing that as a young child. And then we always had PCs in the house. And so I remember fiddling around with DOS and learning stuff like that. And then I was then allowed at a younger age, a Master System, a Sega Master System, when I don't know how old I was, let's say I was 10, something like that, when my parents allowed me to have one of those. And then my love of gaming then sort of just grew because Master System became Mega Drive, there's an Atari ST there, Amiga, and then PlayStations. And then the proper technology came out, right? So you then started getting, iPods through to then obviously iPhones, iWatches. So yeah, it started as a wee lad playing a computer game. Got fascinated, loved PCs. It's like building a website, for example. That is a result of being a geek and learning DOS and playing very basic computer games as a child. And so in that context, I'll give credit to my father for sort of introducing that into our household.
Excellent. I remember all of that stuff as well, so I know exactly where you've been. Right, moving on. Chris Murdoch of Boise. Chris, over to you.
Hi, Chris. You're doing a very good job, mate. Well done.
Thanks, buddy, and well done on your platform launch. So it's voice.io. Everyone go and check it out. Very, very good.
Yeah, and thanks for your help on that. And that's one of the things I wanted to thank you for, because I think with me, and I can probably speak on behalf of everyone, but you're one of the first people that kind of jumps out of their way to help people with launches or advice or whatever. And it's a really nice characteristic, and I really appreciate your help over the years with various things. Some successful, some not so successful, but yeah, you're always putting your hat in the ring to help. So thanks very much, mate.
Pleasure.
So my question is, knowing what you know now about life, business, and all the things that you've learned generally, just, pieces of wisdom, whatever, what 3 pieces of advice would you give to your 10-year-old self?
Yeah, really good. So I asked that question in the first series of the podcast.
And it made me sweat when you asked me, so I wanted to kind of give it back to you.
So I think the first thing for me is I've never, and I reflected on this in another interview recently, that I don't think I have really ever had a proper mentor, somebody to go and speak to go and ask stupid questions to, where I don't feel like I'm going to be embarrassed, to go and sense check ideas. Is this a good thing to do? And for perhaps for someone to pull me back from time to time from those wild, crazy ideas that could end up being very expensive and maybe even embarrassing. And so I think that the first thing I'd always say is try and find a mentor. And then the question is, how do you find a mentor? And so that's one of the reasons why I've been going into schools, and I'm an education champion, and I'm trying to, even with clients, try and make myself available so that if people want to ask a question, that they can do that in a safe space. And so I think the first thing to do is, for a 10-year-old as such, as you get a bit older, try and find yourself somebody that you can sort of cling onto their coattails. the clear answer is also passion. You need to try and find something that really interests you. And so I just wasn't interested at school. I ended up doing a degree, or started a degree that just wasn't history and politics. I liked history at school, but why am I doing a degree in that? And it's just because I didn't really have anything that I was passionate about as such. And so from a sort of career options and an academic perspective, there was nothing for me to focus on. And so trying to find something that you're passionate about, and then looking at exploring how you can potentially get into a career like motorsport, for example, or engineering, I think is absolutely critical. I only really sort of found my place really in my late 20s, early 30s, that when I realized that financial planning was definitely the career I wanted to be in. And I'm lucky that that's happened, because it's a phenomenal career and I love doing what I do. But I also reflect and think, actually, I would love to have sort of focused on something when I was a lot younger, whatever that is, and then really enjoyed the journey, and maybe made it a bit easier so I wasn't sitting exams in my mid-30s. So mentorship, passion, and resilience, right? A combination of resilience and tenacity, which is a great word, right? Tenacity is always overused, but you've got to be tenacious. You've got to work hard. Yeah, unless you're very lucky, at which point you won't appreciate it, you're not going to get anywhere in life. You're certainly not going to achieve the things that you may want to achieve, or the lifestyle you want. So you've got to really work hard. And I didn't appreciate that during my sort of school years. Should have been there, was there because I didn't really put the time and the yardage in. And then in a later part of my life, I then had to put that yardage in when really I shouldn't have had to do it. So, passion, mentorship, and work your butt off.
Very good. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, buddy.
Excellent, Chris. Very good advice there. Now, before we hand over to Mike, I just want to bring in a couple of questions of people who couldn't be here today. So Angela Cox, the Mind Mentor, she wants to know, your late mum is a guiding light in your life. What is the greatest piece of advice she ever gave you?
Angela.
I did think this was particularly good, and I did tell her that.
What was the best bit of advice my mum gave me? I think it comes back to, in part, what I was talking to Chris about just then. So I used to worry and get anxious that I hadn't found my place in life, whether that be career or love or whatever it was. And she used to just tell me that I'm the youngest of three. Eldest brother has his sort of own challenges. My middle brother's incredibly successful businessman with two beautiful children who I look up to him immensely. But she used to say to me, Chris, don't panic, don't rush. When you find your place, you'll find it, and then you'll own it, and it will be phenomenal. So don't rush, don't panic, don't feel anxious, just let it be, and you will eventually sort of find your home, as it were, your spiritual home. And she was right, because I have. Good old mum. Good old Angela for asking me that question.
Wonderful, very good. Right, so one more question then. So this one is from Shai Biakarnam.
Shai.
What has been the event / person / activity you choose that has made you really happy during 2020?
I think for me, it's a collective. So it's sincerely, as much as this is going to sound cliche and cheesy, it's really about the community. So as you know, Pim, I live in a new development outside of Silverstone, and COVID has forced us all together quicker than it could have possibly have happened. And it's phenomenal, because we've made some phenomenal mates here that are going to last forever. Making this where we live just a better environment and a more enjoyable sort of space. But also our community, right? So from all the events STC's been running, me running all these podcasts, the charity event I ran, from poker night, quiz night that we're doing, there's one tonight again. We've all come together, and if there was ever a moment where you're going to suffer from, low moments, from anxiety or depression, or just like, what's the point? for me anyway, I've taken the energy off everybody else, and I'm using that to keep bumping along, which is why I think I've just kept going, because I'm feeding off everybody else. And that's a testament to our community, right? And people sat in this panel group and other people we've had on the podcast, that everyone seems to have chipped together, even during times where they may have been struggling themselves. And so, yeah, I basically just fed off that and loved it.
Fantastic, excellent. Right, so that brings us to Mike Hayward from Woodfinds for the final question.
Mike.
Oh, Mike. I was all happy, but that got me very emotional then, I have to say. But look, I've got to say, and I'm going to question you on the topic of champions, really. You clearly are a champion of what you do individually, and you've certainly championed the cause over the last so many months and the years that I've known you. And for that, on behalf of the community, genuine thanks to you and to the STC, PIM and everybody else, but everybody that's brought things together. And I echo what you've just said, that you've created a friendship and a community, and one that everybody can thrive in. So thank you very much for that. What I don't thank you for is thrashing me off during one of the unlocking periods of the summer. I'm still getting over that. I thought at the very least you could have let me win as being a novice.
The round of golf. The round of golf.
Absolutely. But genuinely, thank you, a real champion. Thanks. Talking about champions, and I'm going to put you to your mettle now. If you weren't so successful and hadn't been a successful planner, financial planner that you are, would you have rather have lifted in your time a Grammy for being a top rock star, a green jacket to put on at a Golf Masters? Would you have preferred to have lifted the World Championship trophy around a Grand Prix circuit, or simply won The Apprentice? Which would it have been?
Which would it have been? Well, my band during my childhood was Guns N' Roses, so that was my era. So I've got to think that as much as picking up an F1 title would clearly be phenomenal, and being Alan Sugar's apprentice perhaps, and the green jacket, well, that would have been a fluke. I think picking up a Grammy for platinum selling album with long hair and a guitar, I think would be nothing but cool, right? And so I think my answer is going to be the Grammy.
Fantastic. I like that. And I have to say that, I've got to be careful of how I express this, but you talked about having brains and looks earlier. Well, you've clearly worked on your brains. I'm sure you're continuing to work on your looks, but you're not doing too badly for a 40-year-old coming from a man that's nearly 50. Final thing, really. Yeah, as per usual, a bit like on quiz night every week, which of course has been great fun. And on that basis of quizzes, I mean, we know you really well, and I hope that you know us quite well, but let's put you to the metal. Little bit of a little quiz for you now, and something that I haven't worked out what the charitable donation will be or how much it will be per answer, but I'll consider it depending on how many answers you give. You've heard a lot of questions from some wonderful people that have been podcasted by you. So I want you to quickly go down that list and shout out which number their episode was. And for each one, there will be a little donation given, or at least a prize.
No, don't do that to me.
And as you host the quiz each Wednesday, and you sometimes give a point if you're 1 or 2 off, I'll see how you get on after this, but you can shout them out, and then we will count them up and tally them up, and then we'll announce how many or close you got.
Jesus, so, Mike, what are you doing to me? All right, well, number one was Pim. Number one was Pim, definitely.
I can't mark you at the minute, but we'll just get you to say it.
Right, so number one was definitely Pim. I think 98, so coming out in soon, will be Christiana. Number two, well, number 99 is Henry Oxley, which is a guy called K-Doz, who's a Fortnite YouTube star. 97 is...
Oh, Chris, I can pause you. I meant the people that have asked questions today. If not,
forgive me. Oh, dude, that's even harder. Right, number one is Pim. Damien. Damien's got to be 94, 93. Oh, dude. Okay, let's have another look. Cristiano is going to be 98. Oh my God, I'm not going to get, none of these are going to be right. I can't remember. It's just they all merge into one in relation to the releasing. Julie was early. So Julie's going to be, let's say 81. Louise is going to be Louise. I don't know, 86, 87. Fiona, this is so bad. Mike, you're an arsehole. What an ass. Do you know what? I'm not going to get this right. So all I'm going to say is whatever your charity is,
I will do something.
I'll stick 100 quid into it as well. Everyone's trying to give me the answers.
What was my episode, Chris, for a Brucey bonus?
7.
Or do you know what? In the spirit of the quiz that you do on a Wednesday night, if you're within the nearest 3, I'll give you that.
So 7. Okay, you're number 4, were you? Okay.
You can have that.
Excellent.
But,
look, 85 for John. I'll put 100 quid in from Longhurst for that charity.
And we'll do the same.
To spare my blushes.
It's a massive debt of gratitude for the time that you've put into everything, and thank you. And it's been an incredible year, but you've certainly helped us along that journey. You, Pim, and everyone else in the group and the clusters, and with Longhurst and the connection. So thank you very much indeed from all of us.
Absolute pleasure. Pim, is that it, Pim? Am I done?
Yes, that brings us to the end of it. So, Chris, can I hand over to you to close things up?
Yeah, so, clearly for everybody sat on the panel, thank you so much for giving up an hour of your precious day to come and be part of this show. For everybody listening to this on audio or on YouTube or video, and certainly for the previous guests that we've had on that couldn't be on the show today, thank you all for supporting it. It's been 100 episodes, which is just phenomenal. It seems like yesterday that we started with a pitch to Pim and to Ros and Ruth saying this is something I want to do. We've now done 100 episodes. As I said at the beginning, I'm just currently mulling over what to do next with the podcast. So if anybody has any ideas about how we could potentially pivot, I'm all ears. We can have that sort of conversation. For everybody, again, watching or listening to this, please leave the show a 5-star review on iTunes. The more reviews we get, the more people will listen to this episode, plus all the other episodes with all of our cool guests. And I just want to close the show by wishing everybody a merry and relaxing festive period, hopefully surrounded by their loved ones. It's been clearly a challenging year for all of us. But as championed at the first ever question by Pim, optimism is the only realism. We're very fortunate to have this community, to have each other. And so, I look forward to seeing you all in the new year, onwards and upwards.
Fantastic. Well done.
The Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst for the benefit of those with a passion for all things tech, engineering and innovation. For more information, please visit longhurst.co.uk/Inside Silverstone, whilst also remembering to give us a 5 out of 5 star rating on iTunes. Please note that neither Chris Broome or Longhurst work for Silverstone Park, Silverstone Circuit or Silverstone Technology Cluster.